Hey YouTubers, it's your old pal Platt, and today I want to talk to you about aging spirits. So let's go. As my capacity of bartender, one of the most fun things I get to do is kind of educate people on certain aspects of the spirits and alcoholic beverages. And one of the most common discussions I have with guests is about aging of spirits. Is an 18-year-old Scotch really that much better than a 12-year-old Scotch? What does it mean to be port barreled finish? Why do I want woody notes in my whiskey? How important is the barrel to the whole process? A lot of places, like where I work, we have barrel-aged cocktails. And the question comes up, why barrel aging or whatever? So today I thought I would do a little video on the process of aging spirits or exposing spirits to wood, and also thought we would tie in a little experiment to kind of show you what happens in the process. Now, most of us, when we think about aged spirits, or we think of a barrel like this, well, usually larger, but this one will do, and filled with bourbon, brandy, scotch, what have you, and it just sitting in a warehouse for years and years and years. But there's a little more to it, and let me explain the base process. We take raw, clear spirit, again, whether it's scotch, tequila, bourbon, what have you, and we'll put it in this barrel. And what happens is, on the inside of this barrel, it gets charred, it gets cooked, whether it's a light toast or a dark toasting or whatever. The inside of that barrel, that toasting, brings out the sugars in the wood, and it interacts with the spirit. Now, what a lot of people don't know is this barrel will breathe throughout the year. It'll expand and contract, hot days, cold days. And inside that wood, that spirit will come in and out of that wood, thus picking up the, some of the sugars out of the wood, some of the toasted notes, lots of vanilla, things like that. But also what the wood does is also kind of smooths off the rough, round edges. If you've ever had what they call white dog or spirit straight off the still, you know that it's pretty raw stuff. Even if it's been distilled a couple of times or filtered or whatever, it still has a little bit of kick. And aging it in wood kind of mellows out some of those effects, and it also adds complexity and layers to the spirit. Now, you could get this effect in more than one way than just throwing it in a barrel. Actually, there's several different methods. One of the things I use sometimes, these toasted oak cubes. And a lot of people use these not just for spirits, but to throw in if you're doing a beer. You might do a big IPA and you want to get a little oaky notes to it, you throw these in. If you're aging a wine, if you're a home winemaker, you definitely would use these. Or you would use some of these white oak wood screws. And basically, they're cut in a screw, but what this does is it creates so much surface area that one of these screws actually exposes more wood, or leaves more wood exposed to the spirits than this barrel. And so it increases, it decreases actually the amount of time you need to age something. A lot of people actually take these, if we had a bigger barrel, we would add the spirit in and then maybe throw one of these wood screws in, and thus it would even age at a faster pace. According to this, complete extraction of the wood happens in 6 weeks. So if you're, either had some spirit you're wanting to age or a wine or whatever, you can knock it out in a lot less time. They even now have these littler versions called oak infusion spirals that you can literally put into a bottle, which is actually what we're going to do. Well, I gave you the basics. Now let's try our little experiment. So for our experiment, we're going to take a jar of Georgia Moon corn whiskey, any corn whiskey, i.e. moonshine, as long as it's unaged, will do for this purpose. And as you can tell, nice clear. It says on here less than 30 days old, but I presume it's not aged. And we're going to take this raw spirit, and because we know it's corn whiskey, we know it'll have certain sweet characteristics. Let's give it a try. Woo-hoo. Yeah, definitely pick up the corn sweetness. There's still a bite. If you've ever spent time around a still or whatever, you get that smell, that kind of grainy smell. So this is definitely a raw product. So what we're going to do is take our oak infusion spiral, and we're going to put in there, and we're going to leave her for a few weeks. And we're going to come back about once a week, and we're going to check up on this. We're going to see how the color has changed. You can see it's a nice char. I got a little bit on my hand. Don't worry about that getting in the spirit. That's just fine. And we're going to see how the color changes, how the taste changes, what complexities, see if it kind of smooths out the whiskey. Now, I do want to say, I didn't say at the start of the video, but I do want to point out something. Now, this is a representation of what goes in the barrel, but it's not the exact same process. One of the things that happens in a barrel is that when that barrel breathes and the spirit goes in and out of the wood, one of the things that happens is that water evaporates out of the barrel, and thus you have a higher alcohol content of what's left in the barrel. A lot of times you throw in bourbon or let's say corn whiskey in the barrel, and by the time it's done aging 2-3 years down the line, the proof has jumped significantly. Where this little experiment in a glass jar, we're not going to get that effect. This is bottled at 80 proof, and 5-6 weeks from now when we're done with this little experiment, it's still going to be 80 proof. But what we want to see is how the color changes, how the taste changes. Like I said, we get a smoother whiskey hopefully at the end. So we're going to leave this in, and we'll come back every week and I'll kind of follow up, let you see it. So this is what we got right now, unaged corn whiskey and our oak infusion spiral. And I will see you next week. So it's been 1 week, and you can see we're starting to get some nice color on our corn whiskey. Color of a lighter ale. You see our oak spiral is already sunk to the bottom. It's soaking up all that spirit. And like I said, we're getting some nice color. We'll probably wait another week or so and give her a try, see what kind of flavor changes have occurred. But this is really starting to color up nice. So I will see you in another week. So it's been a couple of weeks now, and you can see we're getting a little more color than we had last week. I'm going to give her a try this time, and let's see if we can pick up any subtle taste differences. Still pretty corn heavy on the nose. Let's give her a sip. It's mellowed a little. Picking up a little wood notes on the finish. Let me give her. Yeah, a little oak, little wood on the finish, but more of what I've tasted is that it's kind of taking the bite off. Still very heavy corn, whatever, but you can, after a couple of weeks, you can start telling that this is changing from just a straight moonshine or corn whiskey into something a little more complex, a little more mellow. So we will come back next week and see where we're at. Alright, so it's been 3 weeks now, and you can see we're still picking up a little more color. Probably the pace or the intensity of the color change is probably slowing down a little bit, but overall still looks pretty good. We'll come back next week, check her out again. So we're about 5 weeks now along the aging process. We're still picking up a little color. I'm going to say color-wise, we're somewhere around some of your blended Canadian whiskeys, a Seagram 7, probably even like a lighter whiskey like the Irish-style whiskeys, your Jamesons and Bushmills. And we're looking good. We're not quite to the, obviously, your big bourbons, your Knob Creeks and Bakers, you know, and it's going to be hard to get that much aging out of this little wood screw, but we're definitely picking up some color, and as we tried a couple weeks ago, we're definitely tweaking the taste. So we're going to let her sit for about another week or so. We're going to get to 6 weeks, and then we're going to give her a try and see what we end up with. So I will see you next week. Well, it's been 6 weeks now that we've had our wood screw in our jar of the unaged corn whiskey, and we're ready to take it out. When you take it out, be sure to filter this through a cheesecloth because you might get little bits of the wood. But like I said, we can see we've got nice color to it. The 6 weeks with the wood screw is the equivalent of about a year in a regular barrel. To give you some sort of comparison, Añejo tequilas are aged for at least 1 year. Kentucky straight bourbon, if you ever heard the term straight bourbon or straight whiskey, that's been aged a minimum of 2 years. In the cognac world, VS cognacs are 2 years, VSOPs are aged a minimum of 4 years, and XO cognacs are 6 years. So again, that kind of gives us a little comparison on what we've done here, and kind of what the future would look like for this spirit if we went on to age the equivalent of multiple years. Like I said, the reason we age, again, is to smooth out a rough, raw spirit. Also to add the characteristics of the wood. You extract some of the sugars out of the wood, the vanilla. The toasting level that the wood's done also is a great way to tweak kind of the finish. What a lot of what they call dark spirit makers, anything brown spirits, anything that gets aged is generally referred to as a brown spirit for the most part. And some of the things they're doing now is they're changing, going from oak to maybe a sherry wood staves, or you know, a port barrel, the different barrels they use. Scotch, a lot of them will use Kentucky bourbon barrels, but now they're playing around with that. But it's to get the same thing, is to pick up flavor that you couldn't add through the distillation process, you can add through the aging process. So let's see how our 6 weeks of aging affected the taste. We've seen how it affects the color. Let's see how it affects the taste. That's nice. A lot smoother, not as harsh as it was. I'm picking up a little of the oak sweetness on the finish. You pick up some of the toasted notes, a little bit of the vanilla, not quite the heavier toffee notes and bigger notes you would taste in XO cognacs or bourbon like Knob Creek that's aged 9 years. But definitely we've, in 6 weeks, added some flavor components, and again smoothed out a somewhat harsh whiskey. Well, I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please subscribe down below. Also feel free to like or share the video. And if you have any questions, as always, you can contact me through the Twitter page or leave a comment below. Well, until next time, bottoms up.